It's been dubbed the legislation that ended the Labour government, smacking the repeal of Section 59. The old Section 59 had a protection for parents who used reasonable force on their children for correction. An average of 80% of the public disagreed with the dubbed anti-smacking law. The original private members' bill that Sue Bradford authored removed the protection for parents completely, meaning there was no protection at all, and we parents were afraid. Those fears spurred on our then opposition leader John Key to whip his MPs to vote for an amendment to the legislation. This amendment allows you, the parent, to use reasonable force still, but not for the purposes of correction. You can use force to protect your child, protect others, protect property, stop your child from committing a criminal offence, and for performing normal duties incidental to good parenting.
What police officer is ever going to arrest a parent for putting a jumper on a struggling 2-year-old?
So what's the problem? It seems straightforward. I can smack my child if he's going to stick his tongue in an electric socket, but I can't smack him if he does it again, and I'm doing it to correct his behaviour.
You can pull your kid's hand away from plugs, physically remove your child's hand from a power socket, but that is different than actually whacking them or smacking them or hitting them in punishment for doing it. If you're protecting the child or pulling them away from danger.
But there's a protection for me there, though, for whacking my kid's hand away from a plug socket.
If it's reasonable.
Old foes Sue Bradford and Bob McCoskrie have been battling each other on the smacking issue for a number of years now. Both are advocates against child abuse and both believe parenting is a difficult task. So what's the problem?
It says that you can use reasonable force for the purpose of prevention, but not for correction. Now, when does preventing bad behaviour become part of correcting bad behaviour, and when does correcting bad behaviour prevent it happening in the future?
I think it's more important that the children have the same right to protection from violence as adults do. That's what's most important to me. Whereas for other people, like Mr McCoskrie, they believe it's more important that the parents have the right to use violence in bringing up their children.
When it comes to smacking, it's difficult for them to see eye to eye, but there is one thing they agree on.
Our biggest problem with this new law is that it's confusing. Parents don't understand what's going on, and we believe parents should have certainty to know whether they're parenting within the law or not.
It's more difficult than it needs to be. My original bill simply repealed the reasonable force defence, but because of the various compromises that we had to go through to get other political parties to support it, we've ended up with a piece of legislation that I think is unnecessarily complex.
Both agree there is confusion around the law. For example, you can use force in certain circumstances, but parents on the street we spoke to weren't aware of that. Some didn't even care.
I'm not sure about the law, but as far as in my opinion, I am allowed to smack the child, my own child.
There is some allowance now, you say?
For prevention.
For prevention? No, because they still need to be...
I'm assuming, I'm not 100% in the law, this country, but I'm assuming that it's against the law at the moment.
To my knowledge, I believe with the new legislation, no, you're not allowed to smack your children at all.
Reprimanded and disciplined at times after they've done whatever they've done or got themselves into some sort of danger.
To my knowledge, no, they are not allowed. But I still believe in a little smack when they really need it. Yeah.
No, they're not, I don't think, are they? I'm not sure. As far as I understood it, they weren't.
No, it doesn't, to my knowledge.
CEO of Parents Inc. Bruce Pilbrow says parents he's spoken to don't understand either.
We came to the whole area of discipline, and when you come to a Parents Inc. seminar, I mean, we don't even talk about smacking. There's so many other things you can do. But it was interesting that when I just quickly asked the audience, do you understand what the law means? 90% had no idea. A large portion of them didn't really care. They were there to learn how to discipline their children in appropriate ways. And that's the issue. And I think the other issue is it's all very well putting a law in place, but unless you've got something that replaces smacking, and most parents will intuitively bring their children up the way they've been brought up, and most of us have been brought up with a smack. Now, if you've got no other skills in your toolbox, what are you going to do when you're under pressure?
I decided to turn to a lawyer. Now, parents can't always afford to sit down with a criminal law expert to find out how to understand the law, so on behalf of parents, I did. He's law professor Warren Brookbanks.
Law which is unclear or confusing is bad law. The law should always be clear. People should always know very clearly in advance when their behaviour is likely to fall foul of the law. They should be able to plan clearly on the basis of the law which has been declared by Parliament. The problem with this law is that the water is very muddy as to when you step over that line. And an additional problem is that the court has added an exclusion at the tail end of the provision which says that effectively out of an abundance of caution, we want to make it clear that people won't be prosecuted for inconsequential offences. Well, what does that mean?
The up-and-coming smacking referendum has created a clear division on the issue of smacking, whether we should smack or whether we shouldn't smack. But to my surprise, even the yes vote side don't understand the law and want it changed. Child advocate Hone Ka is against any violence towards children, smacking included, but he agrees the law is confusing.
I would have preferred us not to have legislated at all. I would have preferred us to reach a point of maturity which says we should not hit children. Whatever provocation we may ever receive from children, it is not given to us to discipline children using punitive measures.
So you would be in favour then of them relooking at the law?
I'd be in favour of them relooking at the law, but also I'd be in favour of us doing a total re-education of New Zealand society. It says something about us as adults that we still feel the need to act in such a manner.
But even the no vote side agrees with the yes vote's answer.
Sue Bradford wanted to remove the protection altogether. She wanted to get rid of it altogether.
She did.
Would you be in favour of that?
Oh, of course not. I mean, I guess one advantage is it would give clarity. People would know exactly where they stand. But I tell you what, it would be the most unpopular thing possible, and I think the politicians understood that. It would be completely unrealistic. And like I say, it would be like trying to deal with the boy racing problem by banning all cars, or by dealing with alcohol abuse by banning all alcohol.
Okay, there's definitely a problem with this law. It's not about whether you should smack or shouldn't smack. It's the law itself. And everyone's confused. Stick around after the break. Parents are divided on whether or not smacking is an acceptable form of discipline. We ask our experts to help us understand what the law really says and what the police are looking for at the coalface.